Welcome to the Pure Passion Podcast with Dr. David Kyle Foster. This podcast and our many other resources are made possible by our donors. Please support this ministry by going to our website, masteringlife.org.
Welcome to Pure Passion. I'm David Kyle Foster, your host. Today, all the way from New Zealand, we have Briar Whitehead, and she's going to be talking about the Song of Solomon and how that reveals to us the love of the Father and the means by which we can live in joy and fulfillment and be transformed. Her book is called Craving for Love. How you doing, Briar?
I'm doing very well. Looking at your face and enjoying it, David.
Well, you've got a pretty funny accent there.
I hope people can understand me. I try and speak slowly. I think most Americans get me, some don't.
Yeah. It's one of the easier to understand accents.
Because it's a bit British.
Yeah, a little British. So we're talking about the Song of Solomon. And as you read through the Song of Solomon, things lit up for you. Tell about that story. How did God lead you to that, and what did he start doing as you read it?
Okay. He actually told me to read the Song of Solomon. It was as clear as that. You need to know a little bit about my history to understand why he would say that. I was a child of the 60s. So I was raised in an era in which gay rights, black rights, women's rights, women were sort of emerging from the kitchens of the nation and getting into workplaces. And the theme song was, "We can do anything a man can do." Women's roles, traditional roles, were devalued. So I got into an achievement, performance, way of living.
Yeah.
I can do anything a man can do. I was also the product of a home in which I had a bad stutter as a child and as a teenager, actually right through into about my mid-30s. I was plagued with a stutter. And I had to force myself to talk. I had to force myself to go into social situations in which I had to speak. So I got used to pushing myself to keep going. You just can't disappear out of life because you can't say anything. I mean, I could have disappeared out of life, but I didn't. But it developed a habit of striving, of trying, and linked with my home life, in which there wasn't a lot of affection displayed, particularly from my father. There was no support for me when I was struggling as a teenager with this inability to speak. My mother just sort of said, "Don't talk about it. I don't want to talk about it." My father never mentioned it, but never spoke to me either. So wow. I never had anyone to say, "Honey, it's okay. We're here. You're just going through something at the moment that we can help you with." None of that happened. So I learned to compensate for my social sort of failure by doing well at school. So I learned to achieve. I learned to work hard. I got good marks, but everything depended on the marks that I got. And that way I was some comfort to my poor mother, who saw her oldest daughter growing up into a social misfit, not a misfit so much as she didn't fit at all, didn't do anything. And so I long story short, God healed me of this stutter.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complex process, which I won't go into because I want to get into the Song of Solomon. When I say complex, not complex, because I learned to worship him. I learned to speak to him, to listen to him. I developed a relationship with him. And he began to say to me, I don't want you to have this thing. I thought he probably did, you see. Good for my character. It was good to be humiliated and humbled and, all that sort of religious stuff.
Yeah.
And so I began, a breakthrough was when I realized he didn't want me to have this stutter. He did not want it. And just that confidence began to build into me, and I began to find I could say things I couldn't say before. There was, I think, an occult element in all of this because my mother had these interests, and when she said to me, you speak so fast, one day you're going to start to stutter, people will think you're a fool, it was like a curse. And so I learned as a Christian that God was God of my life, that Jesus had defeated Satan. Satan was under his feet. And therefore, because I was seated in Jesus, he was under my feet too. I did not have to believe this lie any longer that I was a stutterer.
Yeah.
So all that to say, it created a person with a lot of sort of emotional deficits of various kinds, but someone who once she was able to speak, just took off, hit the ground running.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything I wasn't going to do for God. I think I had a sort of a mantra, expect great things from God, attempt great things for God, and if you don't, then you're substandard.
Yeah.
You don't measure up.
Yeah.
I got into all sorts of stuff. I mean, I traveled into dangerous places. I was in Afghanistan for a while. I traveled around the world with a pack on my back. I always was driven to get God's approval, even though I knew I was saved by grace. I still sought his approval by doing the hard things, things that I thought would get me a special pat on the back, things which would show him I loved him so much that I would do this, do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
I sought his approval. I sought to please. I sought to make him proud of me. And I transferred to God what was going on in my family. I wore myself out. I ran myself ragged. And one day, about probably 15 years ago, because the Song of Solomon is all going to fit into this, and you'll start to see how. But I did everything I could to hit the mark for God. And then one day he spoke to me around about 15 years ago, I think it was, and he said to me, and these are not audible voices, but they are so clear that they could have been.
Yeah.
And he said, do you want the gift or do you want the mountain? And I said to him, in a way I'm still saying to him, what is the gift? I think I'm learning what the gift is. But I knew what the mountain was. Yeah. The mountain was, you do this hard thing for God, and you get to the top and you're exhausted and you're puffing and you hold up a sign saying, are you pleased with me, God? Did that impress you?
Yeah.
So I knew all about the mountain. And I said to him again and again, I want the gift. But I kept on climbing mountains. It was if I didn't know how to stop.
It's hard to stop that sort of thing, isn't it?
It is. I had a dream one night. Is it a dream or a vision? I was a dream. And, Charles Schultz and Peanuts, Snoopy. Snoopy was chasing this World War I character, the German called the Red Baron, Well, I was Snoopy. And I was sitting on the nose cone of a plane at about 15,000 feet. And I had my red scarf flying behind me, you know. I was doing this tough stuff for God. I wasn't going to be substandard Christian, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I was aware I was getting cold on the nose cone of the plane. And I heard a voice in the dream say in a very loud voice, "If you stay there, you will die."
Wow. Wow.
Dream stopped. I had another dream following that in which I was actually trying to get into the inside of an aeroplane instead of fly on the nose cone with my red scarf. And as I tried to get into that plane and be like everybody else, there was a stern official stood at the door of the plane saying, "That is sub-Christian. No, you can't go in, would not give me permission." I realize now that that was the side of myself which says, you know, you have to achieve. You've got to have results. So I, in the middle of all this, we were promoting my husband's book about homosexuality in the States. We were over there for a year doing this. And I took it far too seriously, and I worked far too hard at it. Did it all by myself. I was doing it for God, you know, to make God pleased with me. And I came back to New Zealand, and we were exhausted. I was exhausted, not surprisingly. And I began having a series of dreams, and I usually find dreams happen when you're not getting the message. And the dream was that I had just come back to New Zealand. I was driving this enormous rig, you know, and it had about 40 wheels and a big thing. And I was in the cab driving it, and it stopped, and I parked it up, and immediately I was robbed. Someone came in from behind me, took my wallet, took my passport, my ID cards, my money, everything. And dream ends. Then I had a series of dreams in which the vehicle I was in got smaller and smaller and smaller. After that, I was in a peppy little car, zooming around the town doing this, zooming around the country doing this and that. Then I was on a scooter. Next dream, I was at a bike. Next dream, I think it was a bike. Next dream, I had a pair of boots on, and the soles were falling off. And I had those dreams over about a year. And it was like God was saying to me, I can see it now. I couldn't see it then. I could see it now, that God was trying to show me your values is coming from what you can do for me, and trying to be special for me. So I also had performance dreams, and the kind of dreams would be, I'm in a concert hall, I'm the soloist, there's an orchestra. I cannot play the violin, but I have a violin in my hand. I can't even read music. But the concert is beginning, and the conductor turns to me, raises his baton, I pick up my violin, there's a hush, quietens down, they're all expecting this beautiful, and dream ends.
Gosh.
Who are you performing for?
And so that took you into the Song of Solomon.
This is, yes, and so I finally got to the point where I was lying on the floor in a bedroom praying, and I said to God, look, there are all these people doing wonderful things for you, looking after AIDS orphans and running faith ministries, and you know, David Kyle Foster's got his, you know, his big podcast ministry, and I'm not doing anything for you. And I lay on the floor crying, and all of a sudden a tear landed, a drop of water landed in my eye, and I don't know how that happened because my eyes were shut, and it wasn't raining. I remember looking at the ceiling thinking, where did that come from? And it was like this drop of water landed in my eye, went out in concentric ripples. And God spoke to me and he said, "You make me weep when you talk like this." And I realized that his tears were mingling with mine because I wasn't doing enough for him. And I should be doing more. And I was going to stand before him one day and he would say to me, "Oh, I'm disappointed, Briar. You could have done more." And he was saying to me, "When you talk like this, you make me weep." Mm. Then I heard him say, loud and clear one day, very loud, "No more human effort." There were other things. I heard him say, I saw myself as a little box floating in an ocean of water, this huge ocean. I had this little box carrying this precious commodity, which was the life of God. I had to guard it, protect it, and I had to carry it all over the world because it contained this treasure, this beautiful water, the water of life. And all of a sudden, the box just fell open, fell out. The contents, which was water, merged with the ocean. And God said to me, "You've always tried to do your best for me. Why don't you let me do my best through you?"
Gosh. There's a revelation for you.
You can see he's hammering away at this whole thing about the way I lived and my fear that I was not measuring up, that really I could do a whole lot more for God than I was doing it. And if I wasn't, it was my fault somehow. I really didn't want to do it, or I was intentionally deaf, or I was a flop and a failure. So I reached the point where I was beginning really to break down. I couldn't go on. And again, I'm in my bedroom, I'm praying, and all of a sudden I feel the presence of the Lord so strongly. And I'm in 1 Samuel, and I'm talking about Hannah and Peninnah. Hannah, who was the mother of Samuel, and Peninnah is producing. With no trouble at all, she produces and produces. Hannah is trying very hard to produce and can't. And Elkanah, her husband, says to her, "Am I not more to you than 10 sons or 7 sons?" Like God was saying to me, "Am I not more to you than producing and producing and producing?"
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Gosh. Boy, what a revelation that was.
Yeah. And so I just remember that standing in front of me appeared to be an angel, and he was giving this to me, this understanding, giving it to me as a gift. And I remember I cried and cried. And I realized it was terribly important that somehow God was trying to say something to me about producing for God. So I had a friend at that point who was a missionary in Mozambique, and she emailed me and just said that she had bought the Passion version of the Bible. This is the version by Dr. Brian Simmons. And she said she had been reading the Song of Solomon. And funnily enough, I've been on the point of getting the Passion version. And when she said, it's a bit romanticized, I think she said, but it's well translated. So I got it, and it was just sort of sitting on the table, and I was about to start reading it. And then I heard that probably the most profound thing I'd heard God say to me was, and I was breaking down. I couldn't keep on going. And he said to me, this was so clear. And he even paused at the end of the sentence. He said, "You are frightened of doing nothing." Pause while I absorbed that. Then he said, "Being with me is not doing nothing." And I realized I actually had a terror of doing nothing.
Mm.
And it went right back into the roots of my family life. I had to do well at school to compensate for the fact that I couldn't speak. And then I just transferred it all to God. I have got to work hard. I have got to be approved. I've got to get a pass mark. More than that, I've got to be special for God. I've got to attempt great things for God. I've got to achieve for God. And so this is when I heard him say, as I sat in the chair, and this was an audible voice this time, right up there, just said, read the Song of Solomon. Well, I had a sort of a Protestant aversion to the Song of Solomon.
It's kind of inexplicable to so many of us.
It is. I thought, is this erotic poetry? I mean, you know, King Solomon, he had all these wives and concubines, and he was led astray by them, and it said he held fast to them in love, and he built them, you know, their own idol temples for the worship of their own idols. And I thought, what Solomon got to say to me about serving God? Is he a good example? Vanity of vanities, all is vanity, you know. Why the Song of Solomon? And besides, there's always been a sort of a locked book. I looked at it and I thought, well, some people say it's a sort of a sex manual for Christian couples, which I think prostitutes it, actually, if I can use that word.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to start to read it, and when I tried to start to read it, I couldn't get much out of it. But there were just little bits that broke open to me, and one of them was. Here it is, because my name is Briar, and Briar is a rose. And he said, it just says, I am truly his rose. Briar. I am truly his rose, the very theme of his song. He sings over me. I am overshadowed by his love growing in the valley. That was all I could get on the first time through. I am a rose. The very theme of his song, he's singing over me. In spite of the way that things are at the moment, he's singing over me. I'm overshadowed by his love growing in the valley. And so I just began to read it and read it. I read nothing else, David, for the next 2 years.
Wow.
No other book in the Bible. I went into it and into it and into it. And as I look at it, it is a passionate. I'm just going to read a little bit from the introduction to it by Brian Simmons. Song of Songs, an amazing story of how Jesus makes his bride beautiful and holy by casting out her fear with perfect love. This sent from heaven revelation is waiting to be received with all its intensity and power to unlock the deepest places of our hearts.
Yeah.
So I knew incredibly painful all this, because I was crashing with panic attacks and all sorts of stuff. But I kept on reading this, and I knew I had to read it. And bit by bit, as I read it, it dug into the issues. Now, we've got you go deeper and deeper into the love of God in this book. I have had experiences in my life with the love of the Father. I met Jesus. Okay, Jesus became my friend. Jesus is my Redeemer. Jesus, my brother. Then I met the Father, because Jesus is the essence of his Father. He's the express image of his Father. He wants us to meet his Father. So I had encounters with God, my Father, and the Father, I love the Father. He he is the most beautiful being. Sometimes I just stand there and cry and say, my beautiful, beautiful Father, my beautiful, beautiful Father. Oops.
It reminds me of that scripture, and I think it's in Zephaniah, where it says that God picks us up in his arms and he spins around in circles with delight over us. Yeah.
I needed to be healed of my non-relationship with my father. And God came very deeply, about 2010, very, very deeply into this child who had no father. And I was actually at a particular school, a week-long seminar thing, and God landed, and he needed to. And I just remember running around the room saying, my daddy, my daddy, my daddy, my daddy, my daddy. It's the most extraordinary thing. Here I am, a woman of 70, running around, and I was beside myself because there was a place in me that had never laughed. And I found my daddy, and he just, so much I could say, David, the uncovering of my father. But then I was aware that there was the side of Jesus, and I had a sort of an encounter with Jesus where he had come onto a dance floor, and he was wearing spandex tights, and he had a rose between his teeth, and his hair was slicked back with Brill cream or something, and he had these flashing brown eyes, He was making sort of these dance moves on the floor and then pretending to trip. And all the while he was throwing glances my way, sort of saying, am I cool or what? And I was laughing, and I was thinking he's making an idiot of himself. But it was part of his romancing, was to make an idiot of himself to make me laugh, because he got my attention.
I got a story along those lines myself. I was worshiping the Lord one night deeply and passionately, and I was dancing around the room. I mean, really dancing with my legs kicked up and tambourine in my hand, and I was just going for it. And suddenly he gave me a vision, and he was dancing with his heels kicked up, looking at me, and he had a tambourine, and he was excited and vibrant, and the look on his eyes was one of joy, that he wanted to dance with me just as much as I wanted to dance with him.
Yes. Oh, yes. They're incredibly healing things, aren't they, when he does this?
Yeah.
It gives you a glimpse into what he's really like. And
yes.
Yeah. So Jesus was sort of on the outskirts of this dance floor, which was the Song of Solomon. And he's coming, but he can't come too far, because I'm not too sure about this Jesus. What are you going to do? What's all this about? But when he said to me, read the Song of Solomon, Song of Songs, it was time to dig into the message of the Song of Solomon in a way that I had never been able to before. And he just peeled back layers. I was exhausted in the middle of all this. I was unable to do anything to really help myself. I just was unable to do anything except do a lot of crying and reading of the scriptures. So, the first thing you meet in the Song of Solomon is the shepherd king. Well, the Shulamite, the maiden. We are all the Shulamite. We are all the Shulamite. Solomon is Jesus. Solomon is Jesus. At least this is how it was for me. And I think it's, there are all these levels. You can say that it is the Song of Solomon, and he's talking about a Shulamite, but on another level, it's Christ and the church. It's the Father, the lover of Israel, is his unfaithful wife. So this becomes another prophetic picture of his love for us and the way he views us. So she's saying, as I was saying, I am so unworthy. I am so in need. Now, I've been a long time Christian. I know the evangelical mantra. But at the bottom of me was this other terribly, terribly insecure place, which is what he was coming to.
Mm.
The one that had to be approved and had to work so hard to come up to standard.
I guess in a certain sense, you have to accept, as he's transforming you by these revelations, there comes a moment where you have to decide, am I going to believe this or not? Am I just imagining that he loves me and my performance has nothing to do with that love? Or is it real? And I actually need to believe it. I need to embrace it and let it transform me.
Yes. I think because we are the raw material. He's got to come again and again and again, because we can't hear it. And finally, he hits the rock. We see it, and then we can embrace it because we see it. But we can our hearts get so hardened and calloused because we feel this is what we must be doing if we are to be the Christian that he wants us to be. And
please him and not disappoint him. And all of these things that we think.
All that religious stuff. So she says, I am so unworthy, so in need. The Shepherd King says, yet you are so lovely. She says, I'm as dark, as dry as the desert tents of the wandering nomads. He says, yet you are so lovely. Like the fine linen tapestry hanging in the holy place. My dearest one, he says, let me tell you how I see you. You are so thrilling to me. What? What am I hearing? I'm hearing the truth. He said, I will enhance your beauty. So we pass on where he continues to woo her, saying these beautiful things to her, these tender things to her, which she can hardly believe at all. And she slowly comes around to the point where she says, he really does seem to think like that about me. This really does seem to be the way he views me. And so she begins to respond to him. And she says, my beloved is to me the most fragrant apple tree. He stands above the sons of men. I'm sitting in his grey shadow, blossoming in his shade. He looks upon me with his unrelenting love. Refresh me again, she says, I'm longing for more. Help me and hold me, for I am lovesick. I'm longing for more, but how can I take more? So she's beginning to respond to his tender, affirming words. It's more than affirming, it's passionate. He's passionate about her.
Yeah.
He is passionate. Unrelenting love, yes. This is no longer Jesus on the dance floor wearing spandex tights.
Yeah.
This is Jesus coming for his bride, the one he loves and one he wants to possess and enter, the one he wants to be, the one he is enraptured with. And he wants her response.
I have a story along that line as well. I was, after about 7 years into a healing process, after I got saved, having been homosexually inclined, I was starting to wonder if I was healed enough to get married. And I wasn't, but the pressure of being in your 30s and it's getting too late and you got to find a wife. And so I was pondering that and wanting God to tell me one way or the other, do you want me to marry or not? I'm willing to do whatever you want. And so he gave me a vision of heaven, and there was a wedding ceremony going on in heaven. Suddenly I realized I was the one getting married, and I was getting married to God. And I thought, wow, I never thought that was possible. So I was just, and he was making it as an offer. He wasn't saying, this is what I want you to do. It was like, an invitation for him to become my all in all, even in terms of marriage.
Yeah.
And so I sort of put it out of my head. I thought, oh, I imagined that, and then later I'm flipping through this catalog and I see this ring. And on the ring in Hebrew is from the Song of Solomon. It said, I am my beloved and my beloved is mine. And I thought, well, that's beautiful. And I kept flipping through the catalog. And the Lord said to me, go back to the ring and buy it. That's our wedding ring. And so that was the end of that. And he used the Song of Solomon, I am my beloved and my beloved is mine, which was extra special to me because the word in Hebrew for beloved is David. And of course, that's my name. So that was quite cool.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Lovely. Lovely. That's beautiful, David. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So we get to the point where she's responding to him at a new level of love. And then we get this wonderful passage where, arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away with me. The seasons have changed, the flowers appear on the earth, the cooing of the doves, etc. Let me see your radiant face, he says to her, and hear your sweet voice. Well, my face wasn't radiant and my voice wasn't sweet, but he was saying that, he saw it like that. He heard that. How beautiful your eyes of worship, how lovely your voice in prayer. And then she responds to him, I know my lover is mine, Jesus, and I have everything in you, but she's still frightened. And she says to him, until the day breaks and the shadows of fear are gone, you go on without me. That's what she says to him. Turn around, my lover, and ascend to the holy mountains without me. I'll come away another time. So he comes to her, he woos her. She doesn't know what the surrender means. It frightens her. But what is the result of this is that she's, night after night, I'm tossing and turning on my bed of travail. Why did I let him go from me? Now my heart aches for him. Where is he, my soul's true love? He's nowhere to be found. So she goes out looking for him, and then she encounters him. I found the one I adore. I caught him and fastened myself to him, refusing to be feeble in my heart again. And so he comes, he woos her again. Listen, my dearest darling, you are so beautiful. You are beauty itself to me. Your eyes glisten with love. And then she says to him, I've made up my mind. Until the darkness disappears and the dawn has fully come, in spite of shadows and fears, I will go to the mountaintop with you. I will go. And he says to her, every part of you is so beautiful, my darling. Perfect is your beauty without flaw within. Now you are ready, my bride, to come with me as we climb the highest peaks together. Come with me through the archway of trust. I read that and totally freaked out. I panicked. This was the issue.
Yeah.
I could not trust.
Yeah.
I could not trust. And I was lying on the floor at the time, and I tried to force myself through this tiny little gateway of trust, and I could not get through. It just produced panic attacks.
Yeah.
So he keeps on. You reach into my heart, he says to her. With one flash of your eyes, I am undone by your love.
Mm.
My beloved, my equal, my bride, you leave me breathless.
Mm.
I am overcome. You have stolen my heart. I am held hostage by your love.
That's a great phrase.
It's an extraordinary level of love, that the passion that comes through from him, from his eyes, into her heart, going right down into deepest places, the deepest places of the heart.
Yeah.
He continues to woo her. And then my darling bride, my private paradise. It's interesting, the word darling only appears 10 times in the Hebrew in the Old Testament. And I think it's 9 of them are in the Song of Solomon. This word darling. What a perfect partner to me now that I have you. And so he showers her with tender words. And we get to another place where he comes again. He comes again, deeper still. He wants to go deeper. We go deeper into him, and he goes deeper into us. And the deeper he goes into us, the deeper we go into him. The two things are happening at the same time, like a parallel. Opposite sides of the same thing. And she says, well, after this, I let my devotion slumber. She got a bit used to this. A little bit used to this, maybe. But my heart for him stayed awake. I had a dream of my beloved coming to me in the darkness of the night. The melody of the man I love awakened me, and he pleaded with me, arise, my love, open your heart, my darling, deeper still to me. There is no one else but you, my friend, my equal. I need you this night to arise and come be with me. You are my pure, loyal dove, my flawless one. Will you arise? And she says, I've already laid aside my garments for you. I've exchanged my filthy rags for your righteousness. I'm not going to take them back on myself again. I've yielded my righteousness to yours. You've cleansed my life and taken me so far. Isn't that enough? So he reaches into her to unlock her heart. The heart.
And in the Hebrew, the heart is, in the Hebrew language, the heart also includes the mind. So it's something where you're touched in your emotions that then rises up and changes your thinking as well, isn't it?
I think once the heart is converted, the mind begins to change, because the mind begins to understand the revelation the heart has had.
Yeah.
I think heart is just the deepest parts of you.
Right.
And they are comprised of spirit and soul and, mind. And the core of my very being trembled at his touch, how my soul melted when he spoke to me. I opened my heart to my beloved, but suddenly he was gone. And my heart was torn out in longing for him. I sought his presence, his fragrance, but could not find him anywhere. So she goes out through the city again, and this time the overseers stop her, and they beat her and they bruise her. She's come to a point, and I'm speaking generally, she's come to a point where her thirst for this passionate lover of her soul has become so great that it's not understood by people who are busy evangelizing the world. They beat me and bruised me until I could take no more. They wounded me deeply, etc. But she said to them, if you see my beloved one, tell him that I've been pierced through by love, and I will not be turned aside.
Let me ask you this. Is this akin to the wilderness periods people experience where, and this happened in my life, I had these incredible revelations and intimacy with the Lord for many, many years, and then it suddenly stopped. The mystics of the Middle Ages in the church write about this a lot. And they say that when that happens in your life, God is trying to teach you to pursue him, not for what he's going to give you, the consolations you're going to get in return, but just because you love him. And so it's a purification of the motivations for seeking him, going from responding to the great feelings and experiences you're having and pursuing him for those versus pursuing him just for him, loving him as a person. The consolations will still come, but the motivation has been purified.
Yes. I see no reason why that is not the case. In fact, towards the end of the Song of Solomon, who is this one? Look at her now coming out of the wilderness. Coming out of the wilderness. So wilderness is part of this picture, longing and wilderness and being without him. And then he comes again and you are completely satisfied. Mm. And in a way, in the wilderness period, when he's not showing up the way he was, you still go back and you meditate upon those things that he did say to you. You're still filling your heart with the things that he did say to you, that you know are true of him. When it goes deeply into you, with this word encounter, when you encounter the passion of God for you, it is so life-changing that although there might be a desert, you know that you know what the truth is.
Yeah.
It's gone into the bedrock. It's gone into the very ground of your being.
Yeah,
in a way.
St. John of the Cross wrote about that. He called it the dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And Teresa of Avila and many of the others wrote about this purification process that is wrought by a temporary absence.
Yes, yeah, that's true. I mean, if Neil goes away too long, I know he's there, and I also know he's coming back. I'm going to have the experience of him around me again. But yes, there are these mysterious wilderness times. It's all part of the picture somehow. But it was almost like this was a correction of a terrible wilderness. This baptism in his passion was digging it into the ground of my being, because in the ground of my being had not known this. Mm. So anyway, she's now in raptures about him. How magnificent he is, how noble, how beautiful, his anointing words that pierce in hell, the gentle face, how beautiful his insights.
This is so wonderful. We're running out of time, so can you encapsulate the end of the message of the Song of Solomon and the point it's getting to and how that can transform us?
Okay. Gets to the point right at the end of the book where after all these things, she's coming out of her desert clinging to him. So, this woman who was so driven to achieve, to make a mark in the world, to come up to the bar of his expectation and desire for her. Yeah. All that drops away because she is becoming consumed with him.
Yeah.
And there was something he said to me a little while ago. It was, you serve me and the world best by overflowing with me. And
gosh.
Song of Solomon. That's a quote from Julian of Norwich, by the way.
Okay.
Song of Solomon is putting that river in me, that fountain in me, that well in me, which is connected right through to the artesian basin of the ocean of the love of God.
Of his love.
I'm not carrying around this little box anymore that I have to steward so carefully. I'm in the love. The love is in me and it's coming up.
So in a sense, you're learning to love not with your own fallen version of love, but as a channel of his love back to him. So it's got a deeper, richer, more powerful element to it.
Yes. And I'm still in process with this book. I still can very easily get back into the I'm not doing enough stuff.
Yeah.
And I've got to go back into this book, and I've just got to sit myself in his love, in his passion. And he says to me, am I not worth, he actually said to me at one point, and I said one day, well, who am I then? What am I here for? Who am I? Who am I? I said, and I heard him instantly, and he said, you are mine.
Yeah, what a great thing to end on. We've been talking about the Song of Songs, and since Solomon wrote it, it's sometimes called the Song of Solomon. Beautiful scripture. Make sure you read it today. Read it for a week. Keep reading it over and over and over again, and let God speak to you of his love. See yourself as the Shulamite woman, and then interacting with Jesus Christ himself. Briar Whitehead is the author of Craving for Love, and you can get that book at cravingforlove.co.nz, or have I got that wrong?
cravingforlove.nz.
Okay, cravingforlove.nz. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And we're so glad to have had you on, Briar. You're such a blessing to us.
As you are, David.
All right. And we'll see you next time here on Pure Passion. God bless.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Remember, much of Dr. Foster's teaching has been taken from his new book entitled Sexual Healing Reference Edition, available at our website, masteringlife.org. This podcast and our many other resources are available because of our donors. If you are one of them, thank you. If you would like to join in supporting us, please visit masteringlife.org.